Hello and welcome to today's training. Today we're going to be discussing service transactions and how to create services and track services and needs in HMIS. So when going into a client file, you'll notice there's two main tabs. One is the client information tab, and the second one is the service transaction tab. So you'll first go to service transactions, and you'll see a variety of different activities you can do. You can view the entire service history. So you can view needs and services and shelter stays and referrals that have already been done. There's always this back to dashboard button you can use to go back to this main screen. But today we're going to add a service. So when tracking service transactions, if you are a program that does that, the first thing you're going to want to make sure to do is to add all household members associated with this specific type of service that you're documenting. So make sure you check the household members in. Your service provider should auto-populate with whatever provider you're in the system under for your enter data as. So if this is the wrong provider, this is just another tip to go and change your enter data as provider up at the top of the screen, and then go back into this client file. The user creating will also auto-populate with your name when you're creating this service. The start date you can adjust based upon when the actual service started. If maybe you're getting to this a little bit later than normal, so you can change this date if it was a few ago. If this is a service that is starting and ending on the same date, such as if you gave them food today, so if you took them to the food pantry and they got food today, or if maybe they just needed a bus pass or assistance with transportation, you can mark it as the same end date is the same day. If you use this little calendar with a green check mark, it'll actually create today's date. You'll notice if I did today's date for the start date, the time is always going to be a little bit after the creation. So you can also use the blue arrows to clear out any mistakes you made. But I'm going to go ahead and start it and end it on the same date, and notice again that it's a second later. So obviously you don't want it to be the same time. If you track service transactions for your provider, there should be a pick list that has already been created of the services that you track in the system. So the service type, you'll see a list. So you're just going to go ahead and choose what service you're going to track, and then click Save and Continue. Once you do that, you'll have more options that populate. You can have the option to put notes in here. This is not where your case notes go, but if you wanted to add a quick note in regards to this service, you can. Service costs, you can skip over. Normally, that's not something that's tracked in the system unless you're using Fund Manager, which is a separate module, along with support documentation. There is a follow-up option. So if this is a service that you don't end today, you'll want to add a follow-up date, and so that you can go back in the system and end this service transaction at a later time. So we don't need to answer the follow-up date or answer this follow-up information because we're ending the service today. You're going to track what the need status is. So this need information eventually will need to be filled in. So if it's in progress or if it's closed, this is a same day service where we're going to close it today. And then you're going to put the outcome of need. So if it was fully met, not met, or partially met, or if it's pending, today this service was fully met. And if it's not met, you're going to need to put a reason. And then once all of that information is filled out, you're going to save and exit, and you will see that your service now is auto-populated here. If you need to go back and end an old service, you can see that this service that was created on 1/1 is still open. There is no end date. So we do need to follow up with that today just to check on it. You can click the pencil. And once you click the pencil, it's going to open up the full page of the service transaction. The first thing you'll see is that there's no end date. This is a service for life skills education. So if this was ending today because the client did accomplish this service and the service was fully met, we're going to put the end date as being today. We're going to scroll down to the bottom and you'll see that, yep, there was a follow-up date that was put in. It was supposed to be followed up today. it's made. So we're going to finish this follow-up information saying, yes, it was made today. It was completed today. And then we're going to change the need status to whatever it is. And then we're going to save and exit. And now you can see that this service transaction was completed. So if you want or need to add multiple services, so maybe you are a service provider that tracks multiple services, you might provide transportation and give them food, and maybe you provide case management. You're going to put the number, so you can choose multiple services, put the number of services first. So we're going to say we're doing 2 services today. They're going to both start and end today. The first service type we're going to say is case management. And we're going to say, yep, we provided it today. It was fully met. And then we're going to add another. So we did 2 types of case management services today. The second one, we're going to say we did 1 service today. It started and ended today. And then we're going to say we gave them some material goods, so maybe some household supplies, and it was closed and it was fully met. And then we're going to put, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and save and exit. So now we created 2 service transactions at one time. So if you just wanted to view services, once you go back to the dashboard, you can just view entire service history. If you wanted to just look at the needs that a client has identified, you can go to the needs tab. You can also view services and service transactions, referrals, if there was any referrals that were tracked, and also shelter stays. You can look at shelter stays if a client had gone to a shelter or residential program. So that concludes today's training on service transactions.